everyone, welcome back. This is my, I was gonna say weekly favorites, but it's my yearly favorites. I've broken these videos up into different categories and I'm really trying to get them out this week because I realize we're halfway through, and I'm acting like I'm talking to my watch here, but we're halfway through January and I'm sort of still on my yearly favorites because I broke them into categories. And I mean, at the time it sounded like a great idea, but now I have all these categories I still have to do. So this is my favorite eyeshadow palettes. I was going to do eyeshadow products in this, but I really didn't have like a bunch of other ones that I found that I didn't really include in other things. So I'm just going to do eyeshadow palettes in this video and we're going to call it good. But if you would like to see my favorite lip products, which is coming on Friday, then go ahead and make sure you subscribe to my channel because YouTube is a little bit cray out there. So if you don't subscribe down below, it's not going to let you know when I have a new video or anything like that. And it's been unsubscribing people recently, so make sure you're a subscriber, and if you're new to my channel, welcome. Hopefully you subscribe and stay well. So let's just get into my favorite and most used eyeshadow palettes throughout 2017. First, I'm going to start out with the Jaclyn Hill palette. I absolutely loved this palette. This is her collaboration with Morphe. The only problem is it gets very, very dirty. I tried to like wipe it clean for you guys, but it gets very dirty since it's white. The new packaging at Ulta and with Morphe supposedly alleviates that problem, which that's great, but I mean, I don't mind just wiping it clean. It's not like it's a showpiece, like, you know, for me, unless I'm showing it on my channel and I can just wipe it clean. So anyways, la-di-da. So I love this palette because it literally just has everything that I'm looking for. It has a bunch of different matte colors. It has this gorgeous bronze shade. It has been a go-to for me. This shade right here, if I want to do like a cool tone look and use like a silvery color, this is like the smoky but natural. I've used this on so many people when I'm doing their makeup, so I love those shades. These shades down here are great deepening, darkening up colors. If you want to add some color, you have this little sort of area right here in the palette that you can do that, but I kind of stick right in this section, if you know what I'm saying. So I love this palette. It has gotten a lot of use. I just totally nicked one of them. It's gotten a lot of use out of me this year. I find that the colors blend really nicely and they apply really, really beautifully. If I want to wet them and apply them, they apply like even more gorgeously with a little bit of like Fix Plus, and get your brush wet a little bit, and those like golden shades just really catch the light on the eye. So I love that, and I've loved doing people's makeup. I've done a few people's makeup with this palette this year, and every single time I use that smoky but natural color and they're like, I love this. So it really is a true, that color alone is like a true like bridal color or like an event color, because a lot of people who are getting their makeup done for an event who maybe normally don't wear makeup really seem to love that shade. So I want to get out of the way two palettes that have just, I think they're constantly my favorites, because I'm one of those people that still uses these palettes, these two at least weekly. I'm wearing solely the Naked One palette on my eyes right now. I love these Urban Decay Naked palettes. I sort of stick with Half Baked, which is on my lid. Then I go in with Dark Horse and Smog. They're just some really great, nice bronzy shades. With this Half Baked is like a really beautiful gold. I use Naked and Buck in the crease. Virgin is in my inner corner. This palette is just a go-to for me. It's a perfect traveling palette because I know I'm going to get like a bunch of bronzy smoky eyes that I love, or I can go really simple with it. Anytime I want to do if I'm like, oh, Laura, you've worn tons of bronzy eyes, you've worn tons of warm eyes, you need to do cool tone, I always pull out the Naked 2 and it never lets me down. I love this palette so much. I don't want to say, like, I don't want to choose between my children and say which one I like more, so don't ask me that. But if you wear cool tone more, get the Naked 2 palette. If you wear warm tone more, get the Naked 1 palette. But, like, don't ask me to pick, okay? But I love this because the shade Booty Call is just a perfect inner corner highlight. Then you have, like, a matte cream color right here. And then you have all these, like, taupey shades, but then you have some that are a little bit more silvery and a rose gold shade, and you have a matte black. This palette just creates some really, really beautiful looks. Every time I do a look with it, I love the way that it turns out, so it's definitely a yearly favorite always. If you've been watching me this year, you probably know that the Jouer Springtime in Paris palette was an absolute, like, I couldn't put this down. Honestly, I was like, Laura, you've got to stop wearing this. You've worn it so many days in a row. These shades up here at the top, there's like this color, I think it's called Petal. Yeah, it's just this beautiful, super duper pigmented matte pink. It goes beautifully all over the lid or on the brow bone, and it just like makes your eyes look brighter and more awake. And then I would put this, what's this shade called? Mauve and Aubergine. These two like really beautiful mauve shades. One's a little bit lighter, I put that through the crease, and then Aubergine's a little bit darker. And then it has a really nice ash brown, I think that one's called, yep, ash brown, which is a really great deep, deep dark color. It also has a camel color, a gold, but I mainly stuck in this area right here with these shades, like a little T right there. Sometimes I use that gold, but I love this palette so, so much. I do have a discount code with Jouer for 15% off. It's Lola15 off, and you can snag this palette if you... I think it was a limited edition palette, but I'm pretty sure they still have it. Honestly, I would get it while you can because it's just so good. Okay, let's talk about these palettes from Anastasia. So first of all, Modern Renaissance I think was in everyone's favorite last year, but it's still a go-to for me. It's just a very nice warm tone palette. These little red shades and orange shades look extremely intimidating, but every person's makeup that I've done, that I've used this palette in conjunction also with the Jaclyn Hill palette, they've all been like, oh my gosh, I was so scared when you were putting that pink on my eye, but I actually love it. So if you're someone who's like scared of those colors, I know that they are intimidating, but when you blend them out and really sort of diffuse them out on your eye, they're gorgeous and they're not as scary as they look. But these are extremely pigmented eyeshadows, so you do have to be careful with them. But this is just a go-to palette for me. I used it consistently throughout the year. A newcomer was the Subculture palette. This had a lot of controversy surrounding it. I was one in particular who understood what the complaints were and understood the controversy. Some of the shades are a little bit tricky to work with, but I've gotten so much use out of this palette, and I don't know if it was from the sheer fact that I was like, I'm gonna make this work, because the color selection in here is just so eye-catching and gorgeous to me that I really wanted to make it work. My tips with this palette are, I love the color Roxy and Dawn and Fudge and New Wave and Edge. I use those all interchangeably. When you use all these interchangeably, it starts to get a little bit crazy if you add in All Star and Rowdy. Once you've built up several of the colors, they're so pigmented, so you just need a tap of it, like just a tap. And then you blend it out. Don't get crazy swirling your brush in these. Just a tap, and then work with that product and then build it up. That's been my biggest tip. But when I go in and sort of oppositely add on maybe Untamed or Access or Destiny, it doesn't look good. If I use Destiny, Access, and Untamed together, then it looks fine, but for some reason if I layer it on top of any of the transition shades, it doesn't really work. So that's when I find patchiness. But I love this palette, so it's a hard recommendation for me, because I do think a lot of people are like, I don't want to spend that much money if I have to like baby it, you know, and I totally get that. I'm just saying, for me, you're asking me what my most used palettes was, and I honestly used this palette a ton. So I wanted to share it. Okay, I don't think you can get this anymore, but I had to talk about it because I used it at the beginning of the year a ton, and then I pulled it out now towards the end of the year, and I've been wearing it a lot recently. This is the Colored Raine Queen of Hearts palette. This shade, Your Majesty, is like this super beautiful golden coppery shade. I absolutely love that color. Again, this is kind of like some of these shades in here. If you missed your opportunity to get this palette, similar shades are in the Modern Renaissance palette, but if you happen to get this and you maybe forgot about it, pull it back out again. It's a great palette. An everyday palette that I used a ton this summer was from NARS. It's the Loaded Eyeshadow Palette. I love this, and let me just tell you, NARS has a formula of eyeshadows in their palettes before this one that I didn't find as workable. They seemed a little bit harder to work with, not as blendable, but they were great eyeshadows, but they just weren't as creamy as I wanted. But then something about this Loaded palette, which I heard from a bunch of people like, hey, that palette is, their formula is totally different. It's just like super smooth and blendable. It's true. This is just a great, this is like if you're going to get the Naked palette, like this is another recommendation for me of a palette that I just think needs to be in people's collection. I don't think they realize how great this palette is. It has this gorgeous color over here that's like great for highlighting inner corner, which I used a ton this summer. And then it has like this taupey shade if I wanted to get like a darker look, because it has like a blackish shade and a brown shade, so I could get like a cool tone look if I wanted to. Then it also has these warmer shades, and then these two just neutral in the crease shades, a gold shade, and then this is a really great shade if I was going to go with a more cool tone look. So I love this palette because it's cool tone and warm tone, and then it's also like an everyday palette. The shades are, the eyeshadows are so pigmented and buttery, and the application is just beautiful. I don't know what they changed about the formula, but I have to say this one like really had my heart, especially this summer. I got a ton of use out of it. I did a ton of traveling, and I took like this and the Jouer palette, and I was like good to go. So these last two palettes were end of the year favorites for me. They kind of came out in the fall area of 2017, and I just used them a ton since they came out. This is the Tartelette Toasted palette. I really love this. It's just a super duper warm palette. It has some really pretty like shimmery shades. Like this is a beautiful coppery cranberry shade. I really got a lot of use out of that one. And then there's just a lot of like really warm toasty colors to put in your crease. Really pretty, like this is almost like a purpley warm brown shade, but it just looks gorgeous when you're smoking out your eyes and deepening up. It has bronze shades and shimmer shades. I just really overall loved this eyeshadow palette. I don't know if the mirror is like getting in the way if you can see the colors, but it's just such a gorgeous palette, and like I said, I got a ton of use out of it. If you're not someone for shimmery shades, or maybe you have mature eyelids and you stick to matte shades, a palette that you absolutely need in your life is the Too Faced Just Peachy Mattes palette. I love this. Again, it's another warm palette, but these shades are all matte shades, so I use this a lot. And if I wanted to add in any type of shimmer, I would go in with like a Stila, a Magnificent Metal, or some of the new Tarte Chrome eyeshadow pot products. Those are like my go-to, like if I wanted some sparkly lid shades, but I would just use this as a base. I would go in with this Just Peachy shade, Peach Punch, Peach Cobbler, Peach Tea. All these shades are beautiful for in the crease, building up your transition. Then you have these brow bone shades right here. Then you have your deepening, darkening up shades all over the lid. Any of those matte shades all over the lid, and then just really smoking out the lash line with the deep dark shade. I mean, there's so many looks that I've done this year with this palette, and I've just loved every single one of them. So this has just been one of my favorites. I was trying to think if I could add in, since I'm not doing an additional video, but like I said, the Stila Magnificent Metals have still had my heart this year. I used those a ton, and then Tarte just came out with those chrome paints. I wonder if let me check if I have one of those to show. I did an entire video on them, and I really liked them. Here's one right here. This one's in Martini. These are supposed to be, mine came crushed, but I don't mind it like that. They're supposed to be pressed down in, but this shade has been a favorite of mine, and they're all beautiful. Honestly, anyone that you would pick up is beautiful, but I really like that Martini shade. I use those a ton on my eyes. A mascara that I loved was the Maybelline Lash Sensational Luscious Mascara. That's one of my go-to favorites for the year, as well as the Essence Lash Princess. I think I have one of those here. Yeah. this was like a go-to for me this year. I love it. And then also any type of liner. I really just wore like a Nude in the Waterline. NARS Rue Bonaparte is my favorite nude waterline color because it lasts all day. It literally will stay in your waterline all day long and you don't have to worry about it. So that's one of my favorites, and I have a tricky waterline, so it took me a long time to find something I really loved. But those are my favorites for eyeshadow palettes, and a few additional, like, what do you call them, honorable mentions for some favorite eye products. Hopefully you guys enjoyed seeing a few of my favorites. Please leave down below some of your favorite eyeshadow palettes that you've used this year. I know I've used a ton of other eyeshadow palettes, so if you didn't see one that you thought I loved included in here, maybe remind me. But another go-to, I always have to say it, is the Laura Mercier Artist Palette. I didn't bring it in here because I think I've literally included that one every year as well. I honestly didn't use that one as much this year, which is why I didn't bring it in here. But it's just a great palette, and I think if you want to purchase a really great palette, that's one to keep your eye out for. Just it has beautiful purples, and the eyeshadows are just so creamy and blendable. It's like one of my favorite eyeshadows palettes ever, and anyone who's watched me for a long time already knows that. But I would love to hear some of your suggestions, things that you guys had as your favorites. I probably own it, but maybe I haven't been giving it the amount of love that I should. And also, if I don't own it, I'm probably going to want to pick it up. So leave me some of your recommendations in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Mwah.